This is a podcast about our lived experience, which unfortunately includes infant death and subsequent mental health struggles. Please take good care of yourself and only listen if this content feels safe for you right now. We'll still be here when you're ready.
Hi, I'm Judith.
And I'm Alina. We both lost babies to SIDS in winter 2021.
In the throes of grief, I reached out to a stranger on the internet and our friendship was born.
In the years since, we've been working hard to survive, rebuild, and navigate the continual challenges that have come our way, including divorce,
Job loss,
dating while bereaved,
moving multiple times,
health scares,
pregnancy and parenting a living child,
starting new jobs, and so much more.
We are tired.
Happily ever after is out of the question for us, but this podcast documents our journeys to happier ever after because we believe life after loss is worth living.
So join us as we laugh, cry until we laugh.
Welcome to As Long as I'm Living podcast.
We're so glad you're here.
I have a new plant. Do you see my new plant?
Oh, wow. Look at that. It's beautiful.
I got it for free from work. I won a little trivia thing at work, and so I got a free plant. And I picked this plant because it's called a pink quill. And I was like, oh it's Quinn saying hi.
That's nice. I actually think that was a good gift. I feel like you didn't like that gift, but I thought it was a good gift.
Yeah, I just am not a plant person. This plant is 100% going to die, which is appropriate considering my son, who is also Quill, died. I'm recording for the podcast.
Oh.
Tyler thought he was in a meeting. We are talking today about something that happened on Instagram. Sounds so dumb when I say it like that.
Yeah. Well, we had some trolls. Is that how we would describe it?
Honestly, I guess. I feel like trolls are deliberately say things knowing that they're shitty to get a reaction out of somebody. And I don't think that was the motivation.
I don't think that was the motivation. So
not trolls, but something else.
Maybe we could just say we encountered the dark side of the internet or the ugly side.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah,
I think that's a good way to put it. I feel like okay. Let me rewind the backstory here. I went to Lake Quinn this past weekend, and you guys have probably heard me talk about that a lot. It's not actually called Lake Quinn, but that's what we call it. It's a lake near our old house where some of his ashes are scattered, and I go there to visit him. And I went there this past weekend on Memorial Day just to hang out with him for a little bit, and I was feeling really sad and discouraged. There's this like little kids playground right near the place where I was sitting, and it was like just a big fucking bummer that my kid was dead and his ashes were in the lake. And then there was just like the sound in the background of all these happy, alive kids, these parents running around playing with their kids, doing what I so desperately want to be doing with my 2.5-year-old. But my 2.5-year-old is dead. And so I posted this like super quick, super easy, simple reel. Like, I don't think I've ever spent less time on a reel than this one.
Yeah.
It just was like this quick video of me, and I'm like, it really sucks that these people get to play with their alive kids on the playground and my kid is dead and his ashes are in this lake or something like that. And every once in a while we post a reel or a post, and within 5 seconds of posting it, we can tell that it got onto like the main Instagram. And this is one of them, racking up likes, racking up like views. And you know, I feel like you and I live in kind of like the dead baby Instagram bubble deliberately. We like it that way. Yeah. And this reel got out to not dead baby Instagram.
This got out to normal people alive Instagram.
And in case you didn't know, normal people don't like dead baby Instagram.
Or we should say normal people are uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I think uncomfortable is a better word.
So this reel, and you and I actually, Judith and I had not talked really much that day. And so I just kind of like, very frequently you and I talk about what we're going to post on Instagram. Not always, but like, I would say 80% of the time, we at least have some sense of what the other person's going to post before we post it. And this time I just like, I'm not kidding you. Like, I filmed that little quick video. I posted the reel within 20 minutes. Like, it was impulsive. But I also I think it's good. And at first, a lot of people were commenting really nice, supportive things, and not just nice things toward me, but a lot of people saying like, this is exactly how I feel. Like, thank you for making this. Like, it's so hard, and on like the validation that people needed. And that's part of the reason that we post, right? Is so that people feel like they're not alone. Then we started to get some bad comments.
Yeah. So, okay. So when you first saw the bad comments before I did, because I don't remember what day I was driving. It was a really busy day for me, and I had looked on and I saw there was like a lot of action, but I didn't really look at it closely because I was probably driving at the time or going to the bathroom at the time. Like, I wasn't really paying attention. And so I saw there was a lot of action going on, but I didn't really register it. And so then when I went on and I saw the post, like, I was very confused because by the time I got in there, it had 30 something thousand views, and I watched it and I was like, that's what they like. First of all, Alina and I don't understand the Instagram algorithm at all, because we'll spend like a long time putting together a perfectly crafted post with like art that matches the language and like visual imagery and subtle like undertones and foreshadowing, and it'll get like 2 likes. And then Alina will post this weird thing from 4 seconds and it gets 53,000 likes. And so we just don't understand it at all. So I'm always surprised at what makes, because to me I was like, okay, well, that's weird, that's kind of boring, but okay.
I almost feel like you and I are entertained by what winds up
very
getting
much
so many likes. Like, it's just the algorithm is like a fickle beast, and she's very confusing.
So anyway, but then I saw some of these comments and I called you and I was like, Alina, people are saying mean things. And I have to say, people were saying mean things. Or
let's read. I have a sampling of these are the ones that I shared in our story.
Yeah.
So the first bad one that I saw that I immediately deleted, because normally like we'll get like one weird comment and I'll just delete it. But this was the case where we were getting like a lot of mean comments. So the first one I saw that I just immediately deleted and was like, oh, it's just a one-off, was, sorry for your loss, but this is a very creepy way to go about it. And I was just like confused, like what about what I posted is creepy? Is it putting your child's ashes in a lake that happens to also be near a park that's creepy? Is it that visiting your child's ashes is creepy? Is it that I took a video of kids playing at a park from probably 60 yards away? Like, what about this is creepy? Right. But anyway, I wasn't like offended. I just saw it and I was like, this is not like the environment we foster. I'll just delete it. I deleted it. Yeah. And then they just kept coming. So we got, you could just adopt a child though. No, which I don't know how that would fix the child that I already have being dead. And even if I didn't already have a dead child and I just wanted a child, that's also not a simple solution.
Right.
We got, I feel terrible for anyone in your shoes, but what an awful post in the same. Seems very odd to post such a thing. And so this is clearly a person who has never, ever interacted with dead baby Instagram before, because this is pretty benign as far as dead baby Instagram posts go. And then we also got, maybe you should take joy in others' happiness, as I'm sure you're glad their children are alive and well. It will get better, I promise.
I have so many things to say. But one thing I'll say is that one in particular was interesting because the woman said, I've lost 2, like later on, there was some interaction. People were like jumping back and forth. Later on, she said, I lost 2 children. Mm-hmm. So I'm not 100% sure what she meant by that, but that was definitely an interesting response from someone who considers themselves a lost mom.
Yes, and I agree.
So my first reaction when I saw those comments were, we both wanted to like crawl back into our lost mom hole that felt safe. Like, our reaction was like, we never want to go viral again. We don't want, like, this community is for people who've lost children and their immediate allies, or people who are genuinely interested in understanding what it's like to experience child loss. This is not a podcast for the general audience. And we've said that many times. We've said, if you're not someone who can understand when we were talking about pregnancy announcements and whatever, then please don't listen, because this is really a podcast and a community that's intentionally there to support just people who've been affected by loss, or people who are genuinely interested from the bottom of their heart about what it's like to grieve a child. And so
you and I do not, some people have a real like activism mindset where they want to raise awareness and get big, and that is not our shtick.
That's not our interest. And I think there are some people who genuinely want to not just educate people, but I think there are people who feel comfortable living in the spotlight in that way. They feel comfortable with that. I don't know, and I don't know how to say what I'm trying to say, but people who actively try
they welcome
to get their,
they engage
beyond. They want a wider following. I don't think you and I want that. If anything, we would like fewer people, because we're like, less death is a better situation for all of us. We really are intentional about that. And when we bumped up against this other general population group, I like immediately wanted to retreat. It felt unsafe. It also, I know this is crazy, and I've said it to my therapist multiple times, but it feels like when we're recording this podcast, it's just you and me in the room. Like, I forget how many people listen to this every week. And I think that means that I can be really vulnerable, and I think it can be really honest. I think if I remembered constantly how many people were in the room with me actually, I would feel more self-conscious and I wouldn't be able to be as truthful and honest. So I think there's really value in having it small. But when I bumped up against this other group, I all of a sudden felt violated, which is the word a friend of mine used. Like, do you feel violated? Yeah, I do. I feel violated because this is a sacred space that in my mind is private, even though I know it's not. And so it felt like my privacy was being violated, even though logically I recognize that that's not the case. I'm intentionally choosing to put this out there, but I can still feel that way. Even logically, if it's not the truth, I can still feel that way. And
but I think that brings up an interesting point too, which is the difference between our community on Instagram and the podcast listeners. Instagram is like this quick little bite. People scroll. It's like a quick little like. They'll drop a comment and leave. They'll follow and then mute us. Whereas the podcast, this is very long form, and only people who really are in this listen to this podcast.
I mean, I hope so.
I do feel really comfortable being very vulnerable on the podcast, because that's only, and I say only, it's a significant number, only about 250 people listen every week.
Today, I mean, some of our episodes have 600 downloads.
I know.
So, okay.
We're pushing 1,000 on our first episode.
I know. So I feel like, yes.
But it's only hundreds of people listening
right now
to the podcast, Alina, as opposed to 50,000 who saw the reel.
This was my second,
which is a very significant difference.
My second thought that I had was that it immediately made me feel self-conscious for my grief, and I think that's something that people can really relate to, because I think a lot of us feel like I think a lot of us feel we resort to online spaces because we feel privacy and safety there, because I actually think that for many people, they are uncomfortable with our loss. And this was just a reminder that we should not be grieving in public. Even though that's not the message I took away, I think that was my immediate reaction. Like, your grief is not welcome here. It's making me uncomfortable. Could you quiet it down a little bit? Could you pare it down? Could you be a little less griefy? It reminds me if I was like a flamboyant gay person in Southern Alabama, it's like, where the messaging is like, could you be like a little less flamboyant? That's kind of how I feel about. A little less you. A little less you. Oh, yeah, that was the response I got. Can you tone yourself down a little bit? And for me, it's like, I need more spaces where my grief can live out loud. I don't want to whisper my grief, because when I whisper my grief, I feel shame and embarrassment, and I feel self-conscious, and I feel like needy, and I feel it's very hard for me. When one person said, you're whoring out your dead son for likes. One person said that. You're whoring out your dead son for likes. I mean,
they said, I hate this generation. Can't believe you would whore out your dead son for likes.
Right. And that takes something that's so sacred to me, my love for my child, which is so sacred, so holy, so pure, and it manipulates it into someone thinking that this is in some way self-serving, as opposed to like
just a way that we continue to parent.
Yes. As opposed to love. Exactly. This feels like my love is channeled into this podcast, into this. It feels like it's a place that I can continue to build a relationship with my son. And for someone to say that I'm whoring that out hurt.
It did. It hurt. I think that comment hurt me more than any of the others. And that one we also immediately deleted.
Yeah. But I wonder if a lot of people feel this way, like within, when they post about their child on Facebook, or they post about whatever it is, their experience, if they have this like wondering, this self-conscious, like, are people thinking that I'm doing this just for likes? And then to see someone write it out loud, it's like your worst fears come true,
Yeah. I mean, I think I actually talked about this in the podcast, but I was on the subway, public transportation in my city recently, and I overheard these two women talking, and they were talking about how weird it is that this acquaintance of theirs, continually posts about their baby who died on their Facebook. And I'm sitting there across from them thinking, well, first of all, like, I don't actually post about Quinn a lot on my personal Facebook, but I do have a dedicated Instagram where I talk about his loss and my grief a lot every day. And it was just so weird to be exposed to this, because nobody in my actual life would say to my face that it's weird that I am still posting about this. But it was weird to hear that there's probably acquaintances of mine that are like, why is she still making this podcast? Like, he died like 2.5 years ago. Not any of my like true loved ones, but like probably some acquaintances. And it's weird, and it does not make me feel good to think that people think that.
I know.
That's
why we resort to Dead Baby Instagram. That's why we have this podcast, because I think we know that a lot of people feel like there's some shame about grieving out loud, especially if you have TFMR, especially if you have a stillbirth, where people feel like, I think there's like a piece of us that I was always like, well, do people understand how much this affects me, or are they just saying like, it was just a X, it was and so I feel like the reason we have this podcast is to really validate and to let people know, like, no, you grieve for as long as you need to grieve. We're grieving. We're talking about it.
I think our SIDS losses are not really disenfranchised. Like, I think people really recognize we had this baby who was alive in our arms, in our homes, and they died. So I think that we get a lot less of this than maybe some other types of loss. But I can imagine, like, and we hear from people who had, like, a couple of a significant number of miscarriages, and they feel like people are like, oh, it's just a miscarriage. Everyone has a miscarriage, right? Like, or again, like you said, a TFMR, which is, all of these losses are all so sad. They're all so sad, and it affects people's lives. And I feel a responsibility as somebody who had a loss that doesn't feel disenfranchised to validate that all of these losses are tragic and use my platform. Like, we don't really specifically talk about SIDS much on our Instagram either. And that's deliberate, right? Because to us, baby loss is baby loss, and it all fucking sucks. I don't know where I'm going with that.
We want to make a space where you can scream your grief out loud. You can scream, you can talk, you can nod, you can laugh, you can feel all the feelings without any judgment, because that's what we hope the universe like ultimately creates. And this is a reminder that our community is still really needed, because clearly the public, not all, of course, a teeny portion, let's say 10 people out of 50,000. Okay, that's nothing. Okay, that's less than the rate of SIDS times a bazillion. But still, those are the voices that I think we're all afraid of. And this is a reminder that, like, we need more spaces like the As Long As I'm Living community to let people, this is a reminder to me that this work is still needed, because it's scary out there. It's hard. It's lonely. It's isolating.
It is. I saw something that was kind of heartening the other day. There's this subreddit called, I think it was in this subreddit. There's this subreddit called 2 Sentence Horror, and I don't actually follow that subreddit, but it shows up in my feed sometimes. And there was this one that I don't remember exactly what the post was, but it basically was about a stillbirth, and somebody posting photos of a stillbirth. And the first comment was something like, I think it's so weird that people post photos of their dead kid on Facebook. And I was blown away in a good way with all of the comments saying this is their only opportunity to be with their child. Like, of course they're posting photos. Do you post photos of your alive children? Like, they love their child just as much as you do. And typically when I see on the internet things about baby loss, like, people really don't get it. And for whatever reason, just like the subset of people that were on this post and commenting were like, I'm not even a stillbirth parent, and I was feeling emotional, like my grief was being validated by this like random set of internet commenters on Reddit. Like, it was so sweet. I'm gonna see if I can find it again, because that's like, I think the point is, like, that's so unusual. Like, I feel very comfortable in Dead Baby Instagram. We all recognize that this fucking sucks and that we're all grieving and it's life-changing and horrific. And then you step like 1 foot outside of it and people are like, Yeah, it sounds sad, but like it happened 2.5 years ago. Yeah. Like, get over it.
Okay, I do think though that things are changing over time. I do. Because I think, 25 years ago, people didn't talk about loss in the same way we do now, where it's like people are a little more open about it. Certainly if you had a stillbirth, that was something that was kind of swept into the rug. You didn't necessarily feel like, and I think now we're a little bit more open to the idea of like, these losses are valid, all loss is valid, these are all your children, a little bit more. And so I'm hopeful, like with, in the next generation, that we can continue to pry this open. I know that that's how it is for infertility. Like it was so hush hush for so long. And now we're like creating more and more and more spaces where it's comfortable to talk about infertility. And I kind of feel like loss is like 10 steps behind infertility, but not like 100 steps. Like I kind of feel like when it comes to destigmatizing loss, like we're getting there. Even the Groupon thing that happened this year where they said Mother's Day can be sensitive or something, like that was like, I feel like we're prying it open slowly.
Yeah, so, I agree. And I feel like our podcast and our Instagram is a part of that, a very small part of it.
Yes. Even Alina,
but it feels important.
When we started our Instagram and our podcast, I feel like we were one of the fewer dead baby podcasts and fewer dead baby Instagram accounts. And I feel like there have been even more. Like I kind of see the space exploding a little bit. And even when it comes to podcasts, like we know Sad Come From Couch and the Grief Guys or whatever that's called, Guys and Grief Guys. What is it called? Grief Guys? Guys and Grief. There's been more and more and more podcasts and more Instagram accounts, just general more conversation about it. And I see that as like a really positive thing. So I think we're one teeny sliver of like a general reduction in stigma, I'm hoping. And then hopefully with that will come like more and more safe spaces.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Our parents' generation, it was so different, right? If you had a stillbirth, you didn't talk about it. And now at least we talk about it.
Yes. I cannot tell you how many cards I got from my mother's friends when Aiden died that was like, oh, I had a daughter, Rebecca, that died when she was 1. It's like, I've known you for 30 years. You've never once mentioned a daughter named Rebecca. Like, and my mom didn't know. Like, no one knew. Like, they just did not talk about it.
Yeah. And so at least now we talk about it, and I think that talking about it is the next step toward everybody kind of understanding that this happens, right? But we are in this like icky spot where we talk about it, but we get people who really don't understand. Like we are opening ourselves up to that. But to me, it feels worth it.
I agree. Well, I love you.
I love you too.
To all of our wonderful new friends, we want to hear from you. Email us at aslongasimlivingpodcast@gmail.com and follow us on Instagram at aslongasimlivingpodcast. We'll get back to you as soon as our grieving brains allow.
Yay!